Hi guys, I have a question for you. What makes a great fantasy hero? Is it heroism, destiny, power? Because when we first made the topic of this video, he really had none of it. He was just a simple guy with a simple dream. He just wanted a normal life, nothing more than spending his whole life in his village with his family, friends, without any grand ambition. But fate had bigger things planned for him. Rand Thor is the protagonist of the Wheel of Time series, and he undergoes what I believe is one of the greatest story arcs in the fantasy genre. From a farm boy to a king, from a nameless to the Dragon Reborn, from a powerless boy running from Trollocs to the destined one who killed the Dark One himself. When we first meet Randall Thor, there's nothing particularly extraordinary about him. He's just a shepherd from the Two Rivers, living a quiet life in a small village where everyone knows everyone else. His biggest concerns aren't saving the world or fulfilling ancient prophecies. He's thinking about Beldine, helping his father on the farm, and spending time with his friends. And I think that's one of the reasons why Rand resonates with me a lot. Robert Jordan doesn't introduce him as a legendary hero or some gifted prodigy. He introduces him as an ordinary young man with ordinary dreams. The Two Rivers itself almost feels frozen in time. It is peaceful, isolated, and far removed from the politics and conflicts of the wider world. Rand grows up surrounded by people who value hard work, honesty, and family. Tam teaches him responsibility and kindness, while his friends Matt and Perrin give him the kind of simple companionship that makes Emmons feel like home. And that's important because throughout the series, we see him struggling to handle the weight of the responsibility and also preserve his identity as a Two Rivers boy. Even when the whole world looks at him as a dragon reborn, he tries to save some part of himself from being devoured by that grand identity. Which is why his journey feels so tragic. Because before he became the dragon reborn, before the prophecies and the madness and the burden of destiny, Rand Althor was simply a farm boy. One of the things that makes Randall Thor such a compelling character is that he never wanted to be a hero. So when this burden is given to him, his first response is to run from it. He spends much of the early series resisting the truth about who he is. He doesn't embrace the title of the Dragon Reborn. He fears it, denies it, tries to run from it. And honestly, who could blame him? Being the Dragon Reborn doesn't mean he gets respected by the whole world and bowed down to. In fact, we see that throughout the series, all the major players in the story tries to treat him like a shepherd and manipulate him. Who would like to accept this kind of fate? There are also prophecies of the dragon which are never kind to him. They always told him that he will be mad or even dead by the end of this journey, that he will break people, that he will destroy the world as it is now. So, being Dragon Reborn means becoming a symbol that inspires hope in some people while terror in others. People around him keep telling him that he does not understand what it means to be the Dragon Reborn. But in my opinion, the only one who truly understood the weight of that mantle was Rand. He knew that once he accepted his fate, there would be no going back. The life he dreamed of in the Two Rivers will be gone forever. And that's one of the most unique things about his character. When extraordinary responsibility is forced upon him, his first instinct isn't courage or confidence, it's fear, it's denial, it's the hope that somehow someone else can bear this burden instead. But fate doesn't give him that choice. What makes Rand heroic isn't that he eagerly accepts his destiny. It's that despite his fear, despite his doubts, and despite desperately wanting a different life, he keeps moving forward. He chooses to carry a burden that no one should have to bear. And to me, that's far more inspiring than a hero who always wanted greatness. Because Rand Althor never asked to become a legend, he simply became one. Once Rand can no longer deny who he is, something changes. It's not that he becomes the Dragon Reborn in name only. It feels like he starts creating this different identity, which is the Dragon Reborn, inside him. This is also the point in the story where the entire world starts pressing down on him at once. At this point in the story, no one looks at him as just a boy. They see him as a center of power, opportunity, and threat. Every kingdom, every leader, every faction in the world starts looking at him as either a savior or a threat, and sometimes both at the same time. There is no such thing as normal life anymore. Every decision he makes is no longer personal, it becomes political. Every mistake has consequences that ripple across nations. Every moment of hesitation can cost thousands of lives. And the most terrifying part about this is that Rand is aware of these changes. He knows that what he is doing and what consequences will follow these actions. He understands that he is being pulled toward a final confrontation that he cannot escape. A battle that has been written into prophecy long before he was even born. The last battle isn't just a distant event anymore. It is an approaching reality that grows heavier with every passing day. But what makes this even more tragic is what is happening inside him while all of this is going on. Because while the world sees the dragon reborn, Rand still feels like the same boy from the Two Rivers. A boy who is constantly being asked to be more than human while still being expected to act like one. And slowly, that contradiction starts to fracture him. He begins to isolate himself, not because he wants power, but because he believes distance will protect the people he cares about. He starts carrying everything alone because he is afraid that sharing the burden will only lead to more pain for others. And in doing so, he becomes exactly what he feared most: alone. This is the real weight of destiny in Rand's story. Not just the prophecies, not just the wars, but the slow, crushing realization that the person he used to be cannot survive the role he has been forced into. And yet, even under all that pressure, he keeps moving forward. Not because he is unbreakable, but because he has no other choice. And then comes the version of Rand that readers often remember the most, the version people call Darth Rand. But what's important to understand is that this isn't a sudden transformation. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens after everything else has been stripped away, after trust has been broken, after loss has accumulated, after hope has been tested one too many times. This isn't Rand becoming evil. This is Rand deciding that feeling anything at all has become too dangerous. So he stops. He stops laughing. He stops trusting. He stops letting people close to him in any meaningful way. Because in his mind, every emotional connection is just another lever the world can use to hurt him, or worse, to hurt others through him. And so, Rand does something terrifying. He rebuilds himself, not as a person, but as a weapon, cold, controlled, detached, almost unrecognizable. The boy from the Two Rivers is still there somewhere, but it's so deep it almost feels like he never existed. And in his place is someone who believes that mercy is weakness, that compassion leads to failure, that the only way to save the world is to stop being part of it emotionally. What makes this version of Rand so unsettling is not just how different he behaves, but how logical it feels from his perspective. Because if you have lived through everything he has lived through, maybe this is the only answer that makes sense. Maybe caring is what keeps getting people killed. Maybe attachment is what keeps causing pain. Maybe the only way forward is to cut everything away until nothing is left that can break. And for a while, it looks like this version of Rand is working. He becomes more decisive, more feared, more effective. People stop questioning him because they are no longer sure whether they are speaking to a man or something beyond a man. But underneath all of that control, there is nothing peaceful. There is no clarity. There is only silence where a person used to be. And that is what makes this transformation so tragic. Because Rand isn't becoming stronger, he is becoming emptier. And every step he takes towards saving the world is also a step away from the person who once wanted to live in it. This is the darkest point of his journey, not because he has embraced evil, but because he has convinced himself that being human was the problem in the first place. And then comes the moment that changes everything. The moment where everything Rand has been carrying finally reaches its breaking point. For so long, Rand has been running from himself, from the boy he was, from the man he became, from the pain, the guilt, the responsibility, and the crushing belief that he had to carry everything alone or risk losing everyone around him. He believed that strength meant isolation, that emotion meant weakness, that to save the world, he had to stop being a part of it. But at the lowest point of his journey, something different happened. He stops fighting himself, not in defeat, but in understanding. For the first time in a very long time, Rand is forced to confront a simple truth that he has been avoiding for years. He was never meant to carry everything alone. All the pain he has endured, all the suffering he has witnessed, all the pressure that has slowly crushed him from the inside, it has all been shaped by one belief that he must be enough on his own. And that belief is what breaks him, but it is also what frees him. Because in that moment of collapse, something buried deep within him finally surfaces. Not power, not madness, not control, but memory. The memory of laughter in the two rivers, the memory of friendship, the memory of love, of connection, of all the things he tried so hard to shut out in order to survive. And instead of rejecting those memories, Rand does something he hasn't done in a long time. He accepts them. He accepts the joy. He accepts the pain. He accepts the losses, the mistakes, the failures, and the moments where he wasn't strong enough. And in doing so, he realizes something profound, that being human was never his mistake. It was his strength. That caring about people is not what made him vulnerable, it is what made him worth saving in the first place. This is the turning point, not a battle won with swords or power, but a battle won inside the mind of a man who has spent too long at war with himself. And when Rand finally stops rejecting who he is, when he stops trying to divide himself into pieces he can tolerate and pieces he cannot, something incredible happens. He becomes whole. Not perfect, not invincible, but whole. And in that wholeness, the weight he had been carrying for so long does not disappear, but it finally becomes something he can bear. Because he is no longer carrying it as two broken versions of himself fighting for control. He is carrying it as one man, one life, one identity, Rand Althor. And for the first time since he was a shepherd in the Two Rivers, he is not running from the world. He is ready to face it. And after everything, after the fear, the madness, the isolation, and the breaking point, Randall Thor's story doesn't end in the way most people expect a tragedy to end. Because this was never just a story about a boy choosing to save the world. It was a story about what that choice does to him. Rand doesn't become a perfect hero at the end. He doesn't become untouchable. He doesn't become someone who no longer feels pain. Instead, he becomes something far more meaningful. He becomes someone who understands it. Because in the end, Rand's greatest victory was never about defeating the Dark One. It was about defeating the idea that he had to stop being human in order to survive. He learns that strength is not the absence of emotion, it is the ability to carry emotion without letting it destroy you. He learns that responsibility does not mean isolation, it means connection, even when connection hurts. And he learns that the weight of destiny was never meant to be carried by a god, but by a man who refuses to stop being human. When you look back at his journey, what makes Randall Thor so unforgettable is not the battles he wins or the power he holds, it's the transformation. From a farm boy who wanted nothing more than a simple life to a man who carried the fate of existence itself and somehow still found his way back to himself. Still found a reason to keep going. Still found a reason to believe that the world, despite everything, is worth saving. And maybe that's why Rand resonates so deeply with so many readers. Because at some point in our own lives, we all feel that weight. Not of prophecies or magic, but of expectations, of responsibility, of trying to be more than we think we are capable of being. And Rand's story quietly reminds us of something important. You don't have to stop being human to be strong. In fact, that might be the only way to be truly strong. So when Rand finally stands at the end of his journey, he isn't just a dragon reborn. He isn't just a symbol. He isn't just a legend. He is something far more real. He is someone who endured everything the world threw at him and still chose to care. And that is why Randall Thor is not just one of fantasy's greatest characters, he is one of its most human. So that's it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this journey through Randall Thor's stories, subscribe for more deep dives into the worlds and characters that make fantasy unforgettable. Until next time, may you always find your way back to the light.